Hi, and welcome to Cooking with Rachel. Today I'm going to show you how to make some orange rolls. My grandma used to make these for Thanksgiving and I absolutely loved them. They're not difficult, but they do take a little bit of time. So the first thing we want to do is start with our sponge. The sponge is the yeast, flour, water mixture, and then you let it bubble up for a little bit. That helps develop the flavor in the rolls. Because they're orange rolls, and I'm going to use some orange juice in my sponge, I'm just going to take the zest of this because I'm going to put it into the dough later. So I'm just going to take a microplane. When you are zesting though, you do just want the outer part, not any of the sort of lighter orange part. That part's very bitter. So I'm just going to take the zest out, put it aside for later. Now I'm just going to use some of my orange juice. I'm going to use about 1/4 of a cup, which isn't a lot. And if you have some orange juice already in the refrigerator, you can certainly use that. So I'm just going to cut this up. I usually just run it through my hands just in case I want to catch any seeds. And then I'm going to put some warm water in here to make it to equal 1 cup. So 3/4 of a cup of warm water. You want it to be about 105 to 110 degrees and no hotter than that. So I've got a cup of liquid in here now. And then I'm going to feed my yeast a tablespoon of sugar. I use this SAF instant yeast and it comes in this big package. And then I just freeze it. I keep it in the freezer and then that way it doesn't go bad. And you just use 1 packet. So 1 packet is 2 1/4 teaspoons. And I'm just gonna do like almost a tablespoon, which is 3 teaspoons. And then I'm just gonna stir that together and I'm gonna let that sit for 5 minutes just to make sure that my yeast is proofing. And once I know that my yeast is active and ready to go, then I will add 1 cup of flour. And we'll check it in 5 minutes. It's been 5 minutes. I just want you to look at what it looks like now. So you can see that the yeast is active and it's bubbly. So 1 cup of flour to this mixture. Just gonna stir that up really good. And now we're just gonna let it sit for 45 minutes. So it's been 45 minutes and you'll see that our sponge here is just bubbling away. So we're gonna put the rest of the ingredients in for our rolls. We need 3 eggs and we also need them to be slightly beaten. I go ahead and make this, the rolls in my KitchenAid. And then we want to slightly beat those. I start with the paddle attachment and then I move to the dough hook when it gets a little bit thicker. And then we also need some melted butter. I just go ahead and melt it in the microwave, put it in a glass bowl, and I leave the wrapper on. And then I just put it in the microwave for 1 minute. It just melts right out. It doesn't pop all over the microwave. And then I just throw away the wrapper. And I'll just let this cool just for a minute before I add it to the eggs. In the meantime, I need 1/2 cup of sugar. I'll put that in. A teaspoon of salt. I'm gonna use the zest that I zested earlier off of my orange. And then I'm gonna add the sponge that we have. It's kind of liquid, just pour it on in. Okay, and now our butter's had a little bit of a chance to cool, so we'll just go ahead and add that right in. Then 3 cups of flour. I just go ahead and put 2 in at once and stir that together. Then I'll put in half, that 1/3 cup, and then I'm gonna swap out the paddle. Put this one in instead, the dough hook. And this kind of helps me know how much flour to put in because 3 cups really isn't enough. You kind of need a little bit more. So I'm gonna add the rest of this and see where I am. Now I'll tell you what I'm looking for. So this is just a really, really runny dough and it's really super sticky on your fingers. I want it to be a little bit more stiff than that. I still want a soft dough. That's probably about 1/2 cup. And I'm just gonna stir that in and see how things are going up. Okay, that was about perfect for what I need. What I'm looking for is, it's now a little bit more of a mass and it's kind of pulled away from the sides, but it's still kind of stuck on the bottom. So that's what I'm looking for. And then when I touch it, it's sticky, but not as sticky. So this is perfect. But I'm just gonna take it out of this bowl and stick it into another bowl. I'm just gonna take some softened butter and I'm gonna go ahead and butter this bowl. And I'm gonna do it all the way up the sides because it's gonna raise till it's doubled. And then I'm gonna take it and just turn it over in the butter so that it gets all coated all the way around. So it looks like that. And then I'm gonna cover it and it's gonna braise. It takes about 2 hours. So it's been 2 hours and this has been in a nice warm place and I've covered it with some plastic wrap just to keep it nice and moist so it doesn't dry out. It's risen quite a bit since we last looked at it. But I'm just gonna go ahead and deflate, just push the air out of it and then roll it out and shape the dough. When I roll mine out, I just take some flour, just roll my dough out like that. I don't like to work with it too much because then it kind of tightens back up. So I'll just kind of take it and make sure I've got flour underneath, push it down with my hands, and I just kind of make it into a square shape. I'm gonna just sprinkle a little flour on the top. And then I'm gonna take my rolling pin and just kind of make it even. And I want it to be about 12 inches wide, a ½ inch thick. Now, I cut it with a pizza cutter because it makes a nice clean cut on the dough. And then I'm gonna cut that in half. So I basically have 6 inches on either side. And then I'm gonna cut these about ½ inch wide. Okay, this is some butter. I just took a stick of butter and I melted it into a pie dish. And then what I do is I just take that, dip it in the butter, and then just twist it like that. I'm going to freeze some of these. You can at this point. After they're shaped, you can just go ahead and pop them right into the freezer. When they are frozen, you will have to take them out of the freezer and let them thaw and raise. And that usually takes about 4 hours. So I'm done doing the knots. I go ahead and cover it. I don't use plastic wrap at this point. I just use a clean towel. They need to raise for 1 hour and then we'll bake them. So an hour has passed. And now we're gonna put the rolls in the oven. See how they've puffed up? We'll bake them at 375 to 12 to 15 minutes until they're golden brown. Okay, so while those are baking, we're gonna put the glaze together that goes on them. So what you need is a couple of tablespoons of soft butter and then the juice of an orange. What I'm gonna do is just like do half of it and then add more if I need it. I'm gonna take powdered sugar, 2 cups of that. As you stir it around, the orange juice is just gonna melt that powdered sugar right into it. And you don't want it too runny, but you don't want it too thick. I have it just like that. And now I'll just put that aside. So I just took these out of the oven. They look like this. They're just nice and brown and beautiful. I'll just brush this glaze over them. These orange rolls are divine. Your family is going to really love them. And I know that I looked forward to them every Thanksgiving, and now I don't have to wait for Thanksgiving to make them. Just go to my blog, cookingwithrachel101.com. I hope you'll try this recipe, and I'm sure that you'll love it as much as I do.